hello to Ann Fudge Schormans. On behalf of myself and Mark Webster, you're joining us for our second episode, and we're here to talk about the work you're doing around self-advocacy. I'm trying to count the years. I think we met in 2008.
We did.
When we were doing a vision for an adult autism center in Hamilton.
Yep, I remember.
And you were new to McMaster University. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your role at Mac and how you and I came to know each other and partner with our agency at McMaster?
Yes, happy to. Well, yes, I did start at McMaster in 2008 in the School of Social Work. I'm now an associate professor in the School of Social Work. And so it was really interesting. Yes, and I don't exactly remember how we got hooked together. I think Jane Aronson might have had something to do with it, right? But it was really very, very exciting because I was new to the school, full of ideas about disability because there wasn't much attention being paid to disability at the school or the university, which is part of why I was hired, right? And so then to hook up, to get together with you and with Lawson Ministries was really exciting, especially around the new initiative you had going. That was great.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark, for inviting me.
So, Mark, do you want to take it away?
Well, I'd like to welcome my listeners and everybody else. Including my lovely co-host Lisa, and today's guest Ann, and I'm your host, Open Mike Mark Webster. And today we're talking about self-advocacy. And first I'd like to ask Ann, what got you into self-advocacy?
Oh, a number of things, Mark. A number of things. When I first started working after finishing university, I was working for a community living agency, right? And we were working around moving people, children and adults out of the institutions into the community, right? And I worked with community living for a number of years. And then I moved into working in child welfare, again with children and young adults, in this case with people with intellectual developmental disabilities. I don't know if everybody knows just how many kids with intellectual disabilities and developmental disabilities end up in child welfare because their parents don't have enough supports to take care of them, to parent them on their own, but an awful lot do, right? And so what I noticed in those jobs very quickly was that people weren't always asking developmental disability what it was that they felt were important things in their life. They weren't asking for their opinions. They weren't at them and what wouldn't work, right? Very often all the decisions were getting made without, right? And that, that's troubling, right? I mean, about what you think about maybe that people are making the wrong decisions, right? And that can have, lots of consequences, right? Sometimes some really negative consequences for people's lives. People need to be asked, they need to be involved, right? That's something that I know you agree with, right? Because we've talked about this before.
How do you give people a voice in these decisions, Ann?
Well, yeah, there's a number of things. I mean, sometimes things have to happen before you do, right? Because not everybody, not everyone's actually even provided or given support to learn effective ways of communicating, right? So sometimes that's part of it. And people sometimes need to learn about their rights, to know that even that they're, sometimes they almost have to be given permission, taught that they're allowed to say what they want. They're allowed, and that they actually should be saying what they need, right? And I think there's lots of ways that you can do it. I mean, you can include people in all kinds of decisions in their lives. Let them talk about, day-to-day decisions. Let them be participating in, making more important decisions, right? And that should be something that becomes part of their daily lives, right? But also, there's other ways you can support people. And one of the ways that I do that is in research, right? And that's a really, I think, useful way if depending on if you do it in an inclusive, collaborative way. It's a great way for people to advocate for themselves and for what they need and for what, the larger community of people with developmental disabilities needs, right? Yeah.
That's the whole focus, right, Mark?
Yeah.
For this episode of our podcast is how to be a self-advocate and what is a self-advocate.
Mark, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I know that you've been involved in self-advocacy in Hamilton for a while, right?
Yeah.
What kind of work do you do?
I've done a bunch of. I've done a bunch. Well, I've been part of a. I've been a part of self-advocacy with a community in Hamilton. We've been to a conference in Pembroke. We've lifting barriers. We're talking about lifting barriers and stuff. I've also started a chapter in first People's First. That was fun. Even I was with Lonnie Boy.
And yet the struggle continues, right, Mark? To get interest and involvement.
Yeah.
And to help people to understand what their rights are.
Yeah.
In terms of their voice and how to make decisions.
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really important. And as a service provider, our agency, Lhasa Ministries, really wants to make sure that people have a voice in their own lives and the lives of their families. And that's a challenge right now because of COVID.
Yes. COVID has certainly complicated things, really complicated things.
It does.
With lockdowns and, a lot of self-advocates I know in Toronto live on their own and don't necessarily even have a staff person visiting, and they're not able to see their families. And it's really challenging when, they don't have access to technology, either because they can't afford it or they can't afford internet fees, or because, they need some support to learn the technologies like Zoom and things, or, to communicate effectively. And if nobody's allowed to come in and support them, they're pretty much on your own, like they're on their own, right? In one of the projects, the research projects I'm doing right now, this is a big issue. We're working with 18 self-advocates, and only about 4 or 5 of them have access to computers. So, and a lot of them live on their own. So we're having to try to do everything by one-on-one phone calls, which is really, really difficult, right? And it's really hard to support people with phone calls.
Especially when some of them probably don't have access to a computer.
No, exactly.
It makes it really hard.
It is really hard. It does make it harder. And people are feeling very isolated and alone, right? Yeah. And so we're trying to get, we're creating like telephone protocol changed. So we're giving people each other's phone numbers so people can stay in touch with each other, as well as with those of us on the research project, and trying to connect people to other people by phone. But that's certainly not the same, right? As being able to get together with people, right?
Technology is only as good as the end user. And I know we are very lucky. Even this podcast, we have support people like our friend Dallas and Heather who made this happen.
Yeah.
And it does take, and that should be the role of a support worker, is to provide the essential tools for people to advocate for themselves. And I know Mark worked on another project this past summer to create self-care kits, Ann, for
Yes.
people who may not be able to be online, but still need support around dealing with the day-to-day issues in their lives.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep.
So I'm hoping I hope for all of us that we have a vaccine rollout and that the people we support are a high priority for vaccine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Huge, oh boy.
Yeah. So do I. I hope that very much as well. Yeah. That would be nice to see.
Hopefully those come out soon, exactly.
And then we can get back to doing this very important work of self-advocacy in a way that makes sense for people.
That would be good. That would be good. And get a number of the projects that we all have started back and running again, because I don't, some of them have had to stall, right? We've had to kind of put the brakes a bit on some of the projects, right? With not being able to get together, it makes it really difficult, right? And with other priorities that COVID has created, right?
I remember a few years ago, Ann, Mark and I went to McMaster when we could go there. Yeah. And we took part in a day-long symposium called Making Space in Hamilton. Mm-hmm. Could you tell us a little bit about that project as well?
Yeah, I'd love to. And it was excellent that you and Mark were able to be there, because I know then that you also took what you learned and you spread the word out, beyond that, right? So that was wonderful. But for that symposium, I organized a number of self-advocates from some different projects I'd had over the years to come to Hamilton and to meet with, the two of you, and with a number of students, and with other people from different places in Hamilton, to share all of the research work that they'd been doing around different aspects of their life that were important, but mostly focusing on intimate citizenship, right? So they were doing projects on parenting and sexuality and, relationships. And so they were sharing all of that kind of information with people. And it was great fun because, there was some theater going on and some role play, and it was a lot of fun. And I remember, Mark, you were actively involved. You were like in there like a dirty shirt kind of thing, right? So that was great. And we got to hear what the two of you were up to, and all of the students got to learn from all of that, which was wonderful. And I remember at the end of the day, we all had this great big conversation about what needed to happen next. Remember, we came up with a number of ideas, things that have started to happen, but some have had to be paused, right?
Yeah.
Because of COVID. But that was a great day. But getting together like that, pulling all, self-advocates together and supporters and allies, right? Pulling everybody together, getting people on the same page, thinking of a plan. I mean, that's one way to really be more effective at advocacy and self-advocacy, right? One way to spread the news.
Mark, are we in?
In?
Will we help Ann get everyone together?
Yeah, sure.
Once this is over?
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Excellent, excellent.
Count us in.
All right, I will do.
Any more projects you need my help? I count me in.
All right, good to know. I may be in touch with you about something after this podcast. How's that?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Very good.
Boy, oh boy. I think that. Let's see. Do I got anything to add? I think that's. You got anything to add there, Lisa?
I'm just happy to be reconnected in a time that it's very hard to stay connected. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Mark. Really appreciate the
Welcome.
invitation.
I guess that's a wrap then. I guess that's a wrap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Until we meet again and hear about new policy, new opportunities, and new ways of making space in Hamilton for people with developmental disabilities. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. And thanks to all my listeners out there. And one big special thank you that makes this show possible. A big special thanks out to Dallas, my producer. And I am your host, Open Mike. Till next time, I'll see you next time.